history of the cables is that we started out knowing a lot of facts about what makes a good cable. And on the power side, we've seen that every time we are able to reduce inductance, we get a better cable. Every time we enhance the mechanical integrity of the cable, we get a better performance. So these are the things that we constantly are working and evolving. And when we did the DTC, we took that to an extreme level, and some of that we are now bleeding down in the old series, replacing them with new. When cables or any products is on the market for an extended period of time, you sort of get into a situation where your knowledge inside the company is so big that you just need a valve to let it out again. And that was the reason why we decided to introduce these 3 or 4 new series of cables, replacing something that was already in the market and actually doing quite well.
So what has actually been replaced? The wire itself, the connectors, how did you go, what is the actual replacement?
We have replaced the connector housing, replaced here on the mains block.
Got it.
And the full cable has been replaced. It's a brand new cable. But we built on what we already knew about the winding, the crisscross winding that we had in the old days. We improved that. We improved a lot of the things we know about having cables not work as antennas. And that means that in the cables we have made sure that we have blockers for resonances. We have different cable lengths so that a cable here does not consist of one cable in one length, but numerous cables in different lengths and in very different lengths. And that means that it's very, very hard for a cable to become a resonator, because there's always something to counteract a resonance inside the cable. And what we see is that most often the major limitation of cables and performance is actually the cable's ability to pick up noise. This be mechanical noise coming from vibration of a speaker wire that is feeding back into the feedback loop of the amp. That is very, very damaging to the performance of the speakers in the room. And some may even confuse this type of resonance that you get in the cable with that the speakers are boomy or have room issues. It's so profound, it's so big. And in power chords, it's also to take away this ability to pick up RF. We all know that in the old days when cell phones were not very protected, just before they were actually started ringing, it would say dig 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 dig, and all this just went directly into your system. And most of that was actually picked up by your wires, your signal cables, your power cords, etc., etc. And that shows how delicate an amplifier is. An amplifier is not a shield for what's coming in the surroundings. It may amplify what comes in the surroundings, and the cables is the biggest source of that kind of pollution, and it transcends into your system as noise making sure or limiting, sort of like the background is becoming white, hazy instead of black and dark.
And then this is really, you're really working in lowering inductance is one of the keys here too, is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In power products, inductance is really, really a major key, because inductance works in a way like a rubber band. Your amplifiers always amplifies a voltage signal and feeds the voltage signal to a speaker. And then a speaker that receives this voltage signal has a certain impedance there. It has a certain resistance value, and that calls for an amount of current. And that current has to come from the amplifier. And if the amplifier sees inductance, it simply holds back. If the cable has inductance, the current is held back. In the power cords, the signal in the speaker wires is the same, because the moment that the amplifier delivers current to the speaker, then it asks current from the mains. So the music signal is on both sides of your amplifier, and most notably you can see this if you play loud and your light is actually blinking in rhythm with the music. So that's because the amplifier is sucking current. and this current is out of phase with the voltage, so it's very demanding for the amp to get it. And the slightest bit of inductance you have in your power cords will restrict the current, transient current that the amplifier can get, and that will restrict what it can deliver out to the speakers in the end. So what goes for power cables, exactly the same goes for speaker wire.